What's up, brand builders? Stephen Hurahan here at BrandMasterAcademy.com, and in this video you're going to learn what brand voice is and how to develop yours so you can communicate with your audience in a way that feels familiar to them and develop a relationship based on human connections. Now, if this is your first time to the channel, welcome. This is where you're going to learn how to build brands that go beyond visuals using strategy, psychology, and creative thinking. So if that's what you want to do, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell and you'll be well on your way. Now, modern brands today are increasingly human, and this is driven by consumer demand. Consumers back in the 80s and the early 90s, they didn't have a voice, but after the digital transformation and the advent of social platforms, that all changed, and the power is now in the hands of the consumers. So brands have had to stop communicating in this one-way broadcast style and have had to adapt to a conversational communication style with their consumers. So that's what we're seeing today from brands, and brands that haven't adapted have been left behind. Brands that continue to communicate in this broadcast corporate style are being ignored for brands that are increasingly human. Now, the best way to understand this is to think about your own interactions with brands. Now, when you see a brand engaging with you with these corporate overtones and in language that you would never use in a day-to-day conversation, would you want to do business with them over a brand that communicates in a language that feels familiar to you, that feels conversational, that feels like they're communicating directly to you? Me personally, I know exactly which brands I would choose, and that's how I choose with my wallet. Now, it's important to note here that the brand voice is an extension of the personality. Now, some of the most loved brands in the world have a really unique brand voice that feels familiar to their audience, but that brand voice is not created in isolation, and rather it's an extension of that personality that the brand has developed out. So it's really important to keep that in mind as you develop your own brand voice, to make sure that you're also developing a brand personality and that your personality and your brand voice is aligned so your brand is singing the same tune. So how do you go about developing out your own brand voice for your brand? Well, the key is in the characteristics, and that is the most important element within your brand voice. So you need to identify what characteristics your audience is going to be attracted to based on their desires, and then you need to identify what they want from your brand in terms of the role you play. Now, if that's not clear enough for you, I'll give you a 4-step framework that you can use to develop out your brand voice. Step number 1, identify the characteristics that your audience is attracted to. Now, I use brand archetypes for this exercise. Now, if you haven't come across brand archetypes or you don't know how to use them, I'll leave a link in the description below, and I'll leave a card above as well, and that will explain it all for you. But that will help you to identify what archetype your audience is most aligned to and what characteristics they're most attracted to. Step number 2, identify what they want from their brand. So different people will want different things from their brands, and they'll want the brands in their lives to play different roles. So do they want to feel secure or safe, or do they want to feel excited or exhilarated or successful or educated? What is it that they want from your brand? Because the role that your brand plays will determine how your brand behaves. Step number 3, align your brand with an archetype. So here you're taking what they're attracted to and you're taking the role that they want from your brand, and you're aligning your brand to an archetype that will best appeal to them. So again, make sure you use the archetypal framework for this exercise and extract the characteristics from that archetype. And step number 4, use the characteristics that you've extracted from step 3 to develop out your unique brand voice. So let me give you an example of this. Let's say you've identified a characteristic from that archetype of rebellious. So the rebellious characteristic is what your audience is going to be attracted to. Then you develop out your brand voice based off of that characteristic. So it might be gritty or rough, or it might have a no-nonsense approach. Likewise, you might identify the characteristic that will appeal to your audience as wholesome or pure. And if that's the case, maybe your brand voice is soft and calm and reassuring. Now, the reality is that brand voice is becoming increasingly important in any brand strategy. And the reason for this is that we are tired of all of this push marketing. We are tired of this corporate communication and entities and brands communicating to us as if we're robots. We're not robots, we're people. And if we have brands communicating to us in a familiar tone of voice and in a way that appeals to our emotions, then we are going to give that brand a window of opportunity and a window of attention that we will not give their competitors. But I'd love to hear from you about your experiences, about brands that you've noticed with a really unique tone of voice that communicate to you as if it feels like they're having a conversation with you. If you've come across any brands like that, let me know in the comments below. I do love to research brands like that. If you've got any challenges around developing out your own brand voice, let me know in the comments below as well. I'll do my best to answer all of those. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button and that notification bell as well. It'll let you know when we've got new videos coming out. If you want actionable brand strategy tips and techniques just like this one, head on over to BrandMasterAcademy.com and get yourself signed up for that list. It is free and I keep some exclusive content for that list that you don't want to miss out on. So get yourself involved. There's also plenty of downloads on there and resources for you to build brand strategies from scratch. So if that's what you want, get yourself involved. But as I said, I would love to hear from you about your challenges, about your experiences. I'll do my best to answer all of those. Until next time, brand like a master, and I'll see you in the next video.